What is up, duelists, and welcome back to another Yu-Gi-Oh video. And with the WCQs in the book for basically every region now, July and August are going to be a little bit more calm of a season for the Yu-Gi-Oh trading card game, unless of course you qualified for the World Championships, but I didn't this year. So it got me thinking, what is actually up next for the Yu-Gi-Oh trading card game? What kind of changes can we expect? What kind of products, what kind of cards are coming out? What direction is the game headed? So that's going to be the topic of today's discussion. Before we begin though, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. It really means a lot to me if you support the channel in that way. Leave some feedback in the comments down below as usual. What do you think of the things that are coming up for Yu-Gi-Oh? Let's get started. And I think a great place to start when we're talking about what is to come in the upcoming months or weeks for the Yu-Gi-Oh trading card game. In order to evaluate if the game is moving in the right direction, I think we should look at how things are looking at the moment. And that is, of course, the current TCG format. So what I've done here on yugioh Pro Deck is I've filtered the last 4 weeks of competitive events. I did 4 weeks only because I wanted Chaos Origin to be included for most of it. As we can see, there is a pretty much, if you're looking at the numbers here, a pretty clear best deck in the format in Cool Tune. Then after Cool Tune, you have a pretty decent variety of different decks and playstyles as well. You've got like mid-rangey decks like Branded and the Light and Darkness Ritual deck, but you also got combo decks represented in Elf Notes and Doom Z and Power Patrons and so on and so forth. You've got your Mitsurugis and Sky Striker in there. I think those are pretty popular, especially at the regional level, mainly as well because of the legendary modern decks. Both of those decks are good, but they also are definitely more affordable than the other options in the format, which I think is a very good and important thing. That decks like that are available, good decks that are also accessible, I think is a very, very good thing for the game overall. And I would say overall, even though, of course, some people are going to like some of these decks and dislike others just for subjective reasonings, like for myself, I'm not a huge fan of the combo decks, you guys know this, but I would still say overall, they are doing a very good job at just having a lot of different playstyles represented at the top of the game at the moment, with the exception of course, Cool Tune being a decent bit too strong at the moment. We're going to look at a lot of things that are basically guaranteed to happen. Like we're looking at upcoming products, upcoming cards that we know we are getting. The one thing that's a little bit uncertain is when and if and what exactly a ban list is going to look like, if it happens or when it happens. And I would say looking at this, the only thing that the next Forbidden Unlimited list absolutely has to do is hit Cool Tune, I would say, because everything else is essentially kind of balanced right now in terms of its win rate, in terms of its success rate. People are going to have their subjective things that they would like to get hit. Like some people are going to like to see Branded or Sky Striker get hit because they don't love playing against it. I personally would love to see some combo hits because that's what I subjectively don't enjoy playing against. But just in terms of raw balancing, raw power level, the only deck that really needs to get hit here is probably Cool Tune, realistically, which is interesting because the Yu-Gi-Oh trading card game is a game that is hard to balance, but at the moment I think it's at a pretty healthy spot. And so this gives us an opportunity to look ahead a little bit, right? The first product that is going to happen actually on my birthday, I just now realized, 3rd of September, is Magnificent Monsters, which of course, this is the set that I want to talk about. Not only about the cards that are inside, but also because it's the first set ever that is going to introduce Grandmaster rares to the Yu-Gi-Oh trading card game, which is just one of the things that this game has never done before that I think is absolutely phenomenal. And that is that Yu-Gi-Oh is finally starting to become collectible again. And we've iterated over this a bunch of times in the past. I don't want to have this be a very core part of today's video, but just to quickly mention it, I think this is a good thing for the game as a whole, because the game being collectible means that more of the product is being opened, and the more product is being opened, the more of the regular lower rarity versions of the cards are going to be out there. So in my opinion, or what we see in other card games that are more accessible or have been more accessible in the Yu-Gi-Oh in the past, one of the main things that those games have is they have chase cards that are not necessary for competitive play. And this is what the Overframes, the Grandmasters, and so on and so forth, that's what those cards can offer to the game. So what I'm hoping is that stuff like this and stuff like the Overframes in general make Yu-Gi-Oh more accessible as a whole, which is why I'm so happy that it's happening. But yes, this is going to be the first time we are going to have serialized cards in the Yu-Gi-Oh trading card game. These have already released in the OCG, and they have been an absolute success. So I would be surprised if they weren't a success in a TCG as well. But let's talk about what kind of impact they might have on the competitive landscape for Yu-Gi-Oh! Because initially when these cards were announced, alongside some other people, I was worried that they were going to go a little bit crazy on the power level on these cards to make sure that they sell, which realistically I don't think is necessary because, I mean, look at these cards. They're going to sell regardless, even if they're not great. But there are a couple of cards here that have had a significant impact on the OCG metagame, and I want to go over these a little bit. It's also worth noting that in Magnificent Monsters, these are not the only good cards. There's other new cards in the set. For example, this card right here is the new Terraforming, essentially. It is a spell card. Rainbow Bridge Bifrost is a normal spell that lets you banish 3 cards from your extra deck, including a light synchro, and they all have to be level 10 or higher, I believe, to search a field spell. So essentially, it's a Terraforming that requires some extra deck space, but it is currently already seeing use in the OCG. And there's a couple of other cards in this pack as well. But of course, the main star of the show are going to be the overframes. These were originally printed in the Limit Over collection, the Heroes. These are the ones that we're getting. There are more overframes out there in the OCG from the Rivals collection that we are not going to get immediately. I don't know when we are going to get those, but for now, we are just going to get the ones from the Heroes collection. And the ones that I find particularly worth noting are Kuriboh Multiply, which is a card that says, when an opponent's monster declares an attack or your opponent activates a monster effect, you can special this card from the hand. And then once again, if an opponent's monster attacks or when your opponent activates a monster effect on the field, you can add to your hand or special summon a Dark Magician or a monster with 300 attack, 200 defense from your deck or graveyard. This includes Grifo. And so this is basically another way to Grifo in the Ritual of Light and Darkness deck, which is the main place where this card has seen play in the OCG so far, and I think it is going to see play in that deck in a TCG as well. Grifo, of course, being a quick effect as well to place your Mind Shuffle. It's a turn 0 play to get you into your engine, makes Kuriboh Multiply a phenomenal card going second in the Light and Darkness Ritual deck. So I think it's going to be an inclusion in those decks. However, it's worth noting that going first, this card essentially does nothing. You have to wait for your opponent to do something for it to give you access to the Grifo. But still, it is a really good card for that deck to help it going second. That is the main use case of this card, is to find Grifo when you're going second on turn 0. Another thing that has seen a pretty decent amount of play in the OCG from this pack is Synchro Emergency, which is another turn 0 hand trap, quote unquote, because this card says if only the opponent controls a monster, you can activate this card from your hand. And then it does lock you into synchros, but I mean, you're going to use it in a synchro deck anyways. And then you get to special a monster from your hand. And then if the opponent controls a monster that's special summoned from the extra deck, you also get to special summon a Synchron from your deck. And then you can banish this card from your grave and then synchro summon. So essentially, this card is a turn 0 synchro play if you're going second with the synchro strategy. Of course, you do need to play a Synchron monster for this. Luckily, in that same Limit Over collection, they also revealed the new Starjunk Synchron, which is kind of like just the best target for this card. So this is what in the OCG has been a very popular turn 0 inclusion in synchro decks, basically. And this is just, I don't know if it's intended or just by chance, another exclusive hand trap for synchro strategies, which alongside Fedralis Harmonia makes it so that a lot of different synchro decks, you know, like Elf Notes or like Cool Tune, have the option to include a couple of very unique turn 0 hand traps in their deck that other decks don't have access to or not as easy of an access to, which is pretty interesting. So this is something that as a package, you can do all kinds of things with these two together depending on what deck you're playing and also what monster you're summoning from your hand with this, right? You're going to summon something from your hand that you want to synchro with. So it's going to have different levels accessible depending on what you do. I think this card is pretty good. At some point, there even was a turn 0 FTK with this card, but I mean, that's probably more of a meme. At least if the OCG is anything to go by, that never saw competitive play. For the most part, it was just another hand trap for synchro decks, pretty much, is what this card has boiled down to, I would say. Another card that is seeing very active competitive play in the OCG at the moment is Cyber's Contract Witch. This is probably the one you've heard of because it searches Habakiri, among other things. It is a Cyber's Link 2. We love these on this channel. 2 monsters with the same type. If this card is link summoned or a monster is special summoned to a zone this card points to, you can send a spell from hand or face up field to the grave to add a ritual monster from your deck to your hand. Is the main effect on this card, of course. Meant to be used with the Cyber's Ritual support, which actually is how it's being used in some Malice decks in the OCG, but also able to, generically search Habakiri as a link 2, which is something that for the TCG is actually quite relevant. because we still have 3 copies of Prayers, and Prayers is probably, at least if the other formats are anything to go by, limiting Prayers seems to be the most effective way of balancing Mitsurugi, and it hasn't happened yet in the TCG. So if they don't hit Mitsurugi on the next Forbidden and Limited list, if that even happens before we get Magnificent Monsters, I do think Cyber's Contract Witch is a significant boost to all kinds of Mitsurugi hybrid variations, because it's now much easier to bridge into Habakiri again. And then we've also got the Dark Magician support with Dark Magical Curtain and the Dark Magician, the Pharaoh's Servant, which are also 2 very good cards, actually. I mean, even though Dark Magician itself has never been a meta strategy in the TCG, I actually have seen some decks pop up with Dark Magician in the OCG since those cards were released. Hasn't really taken over the top meta spots. It's just to show that there are a couple of really decent Overframe / Grandmaster rares in the set. And of course, for everyone who's worried about that, there are regular versions of these cards in the set as well. So you're not going to be forced to chase for the Overframe or even the Grandmaster to play in your decks. They've got regular versions that, if they are somewhat reasonable to pull in their pull rates, they're not going to be very expensive. Because I mean, I feel like this set is going to be opened like crazy because everyone is going to chase those crazy looking Overframes and Grandmaster rares. So I think there's going to be plenty of the regular versions out there. So I'm personally not too worried about the accessibility of these cards, which is one of the cool things about the whole Overframe Grandmaster concept. And that is essentially Magnificent Monsters. I think there's a couple of things that could be in here that we don't know about yet. I don't know if the full set list is revealed yet, but just the Overframes themselves, I feel like, even though we've just looked at a couple of them that actually are meta viable and will see some amount of play, when I read these cards for the first time, I feel like some of them seemed pretty crazy, but they haven't taken over the OCG by storm, but they have a lot of potential, I would say. I don't want to go over every single one now. I've reacted to all of them at some point. All of that is on the Plus channel. I am looking forward to this set personally, even though there's a couple of things in there, like another Link 2 that searches Habakiri or something like that, that I'm not the biggest fan of, but I overall think the impact on these cards on the OCG metagame has been fine, moderate, nothing too crazy. And I'm willing to give this set the benefit of the doubt and say that a lot of the stuff in this set is actually quite cool. And as a big fan of the Light and Darkness Ritual deck, of course, I am a big fan of Kuriboh Multiply. That's the one I'm looking forward to the most from a competitive standpoint. And then we are looking ahead to another core set, Beyond the Brave, which is a set that is, for us, hard to predict in terms of its meta impact, because as of the recording of this video, this set has just released in the OCG, so it is hard to exactly understand the impact of this set, but we can already talk about a couple of things that this set is trying to do. And I've looked at this set, and I want to say overall, I feel like, and this is just a gut feeling, but I feel like they've tried to lower the power level of core sets in the game recently. This is just how I'm feeling. It's also something I feel about with Chaos Origins. Chaos Origins feels like it hasn't added anything super broken into the game. And this is not a critique. This is actually not a bad thing in my opinion. I think Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a game that often struggles with, you know, power creep and stuff like that, and overly powerful combo decks. So I think any set that doesn't add anything super crazy, but instead adds like a couple of niche options, couple of generic cards like Pot of Sloth, for the example of Chaos Origins, for me, that's a win. For me, Chaos Origin is a very successful set, even if it doesn't give us the next tier 0 meta deck, right? I think there's a lot more when it comes to the quality of a Yu-Gi-Oh set than just, you know, oh, here's a new tier 0 deck, right? And Beyond the Brave, to me, is a set that I'm looking forward to because it feels very similar to this. It has a couple of interesting archetypes, which I've reacted to already, once again, on the Plus channel. The new Joey cards, I think, are actually more interesting than people give them credit for. Not because the deck is particularly good. I think the deck is actually not very good. But I think the new Time Wizard Quick Play spell is actually an interesting generic card. I think the Joey cards could end up seeing play as a generic package. However, this set, and we're also going to talk about another card from another set in a moment, we are at a point where they are finally addressing the combo decks in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading card game. And I mean, I personally would of course love if they toned down the power level of the combo decks. But another thing they can do is give us appropriate answers to combo decks. And so the next two cards we're going to look at, I think, are actually comparable in terms of their meta impact to something like Nibiru the Primal Being was in 2019. And I mean, Nibiru nowadays is actually a card that sees less and less play as time goes on. So if you started playing recently, maybe you don't necessarily understand how big of an impact Nibiru had in the beginning. But Nibiru was a card that has shaped how decks were being played, how combos were being structured for a long time. And I mean, even to this day, people do look at their combo lines and see how they can maneuver around Nibiru the best. This card, I think, could have a very similar impact in terms of meta viability. So the world's greatest Gallant Thief is a new board breaker that works pretty similar to Lava Golem, but it's infinitely better than Lava Golem, because this card says if you control no monsters, you can tribute summon this card face up by tributing monsters from your hand and or your opponent's field. So right off the bat, this is a Lava Golem that goes to your side of the field, not your opponent's side of the field. The only downside compared to Lava Golem is that it's a normal summon, so you cannot, like, if you draw 2 of it, you can't summon it twice, whereas with 2 Lava Golems, you could tribute 4 mon. But usually you're just gonna, I mean, on average, you're not gonna have 2 in hand, so it's fine. And it even comes with a bonus effect. When your opponent activates a card effect in the hand, grave, or banishment, and this card was normal summoned, quick effect, you can negate that effect. If you do that, destroy that card. So it's a negation for hand, graveyard, or banishment. So when you play into a board, immediately tribute 2 of their monsters and have a negate for any leftover hand traps or graveyard effects that they have. This is a phenomenal, incredibly strong board breaker. This card is going to change the way we play this game, especially post-side. I mean, you can technically main deck this card. It is usable going first if you tribute 2 other monsters from your hand, but then your normal summon is gone, so I don't know how many decks can do that. Mitsurugi arguably could, because you would even get an advantage from tributing your rituals, but that's besides the point. I think as a generic card, this is mostly a going second board breaker, and a very good one at that. And we need that in modern Yu-Gi-Oh! We need good board breakers. You know, with how good these combo decks are getting, we do need good answers. And yes, I mean, this is all, we've talked about this in the past, this big cycle of they make a new combo deck, they make the combo deck stronger, then they make more powerful board breakers or hand traps, and then they make the combo deck stronger again to deal with those cards. I'm not a big fan of this cycle as well. I would hope that they would eventually stop making the combo decks even stronger and stronger and stronger, so they can stop making the board breakers stronger and stronger and stronger. Unfortunately, I don't know if Yu-Gi-Oh! Is ever going to break out of this cycle, realistically. I mean, this is, honestly, this is a topic for a video on its own. Just for the sake of this video, I think with where Yu-Gi-Oh! Is at right now, I think it's good that we get more powerful ways to address combo boards, and this is one of those cards. Very strong card. Alongside a card that is not in Beyond the Brave, it's in the utility selection, actually, which is pretty much exactly what it sounds like. It's just a pack full of generically useful cards, which I think is a pretty interesting concept. And it's also about to release in the OCG at the start of August. And it includes a card that's called Mind Mirror Force, which is another card that I've reacted to already. And that was a very long video because this card is awesome. And there's so much to talk about with this card. So I'm going to force myself to be a little bit shorter here. Otherwise, I could talk about this card for like 20 minutes. But if your opponent controls 5 or more face-up cards, this card's activation and effect cannot be negated. Also, it can be activated the turn it was set. At any of the following timings, negate the effects of as many face-up cards your opponent controls as possible. If you do destroy them, your monsters cannot attack directly until the end of the next turn after this card resolves. So the timings at which you can activate this card are when an opponent's monster with the highest attack attacks, when your opponent activates a monster effect that would destroy a card on the field, or when your opponent activates a monster effect in hand or field during your turn. So essentially, your opponent makes a huge combo board. You can set this card when you're going second, and then when they use an effect, you can flip it up. If they have 5 or more face-up cards, that is, can't be negated, and you negate all their cards and destroy all of their cards, the face-up ones. So essentially what this card does is it punishes heavy combo boards, pretty much. And this is awesome in so many ways. It's, first of all, it's awesome that they are making a punish for combo boards, but this card in particular is awesome because it allows you to play mind games. This card is going to change the way people play, even when you don't even draw it, which is awesome. This is the kind of effect that Nibiru had on the game. Because this card exists, people are going to have to think twice about making a board. Like when your elf node opponent combos, there is a world where people are going to start making smaller boards with elf node to respect this card. If this card is in every player's deck, or even if it's just in some players' decks, you're going to win some games because your opponent plays around it even though you don't even have it. You can start your turn going second. Oh, you drew a duplicate of a once per turn spell card. Just set one and have your opponent second guess whether it's Mind Mirror Force and play super awkwardly around it, and maybe you win a game off of it. And I think that's a phenomenal concept, and I'm really looking forward to this card. Unfortunately, we are now in the territory of cards that we don't know exactly when we're getting them. Beyond the Brave and the Magnificent Monsters sets are already announced for the TCG. For the Magnificent Monsters, it's the 3rd of September. For Beyond the Brave, it's the 8th of October. For the utility selection, we only know when it's coming out in the OCG, which is the 8th of August. But we do not know when we get these cards in the TCG. And honestly, there's a couple of other interesting cards in the set as well. And I also don't think it's fully revealed yet. There's more cards to come for this set. I'm really looking forward to it, and I wonder when we are going to get these cards. But I'm on board with, I mean, the world's greatest Gallant Thief and Mind Mirror Force. I feel like we need those tools, you know? I think we are getting to a point where, like, the board breakers are starting to get a little bit outdated, and I also think hand traps are getting a little bit outdated. Honestly, I cannot be bothered trying to negate my opponent's cards with cards like Valor, Imperm, Ash going second. It feels bad when you're playing into combo decks to play that mini game with my opponent. And I want to have more ways to go second in Yu-Gi-Oh! That are not just hand trap your opponent to death or play a board breaker from, like, at this point, 7 years ago. Like, yeah, it's kind of necessary. And now we have something else to talk about that I've already spent some time talking about in recent days over on the Plus channel, and that is Toon. And this is another one of those things where I don't know yet when we are going to get these cards. This deck is currently dominating the OCG. I have taken a closer look at Toon. I've reacted to the cards, and I've even taken the time to take a look at the most recent Japan World Championship qualifiers, which was the basically most important tournament of the year for Japan, because it was the one that determines who's going to the World Championships. It was won by Toons, it was dominated by Toons, and I've taken the time to look at the matches for the top 4, which all involve Toon. We watched both top 4 matches and the finals on stream to figure out, you know, how good or bad is the gameplay that Toon actually provides. I will probably upload the reaction to those feature matches on the Plus channel as well, so you can go check that out if you're interested in that. But TLDR, it's not looking good. I guess now we segue into the question of, you know, what kind of direction is Yu-Gi-Oh going? Is it an overall good direction? Is it a bad direction? What's going on here? And this is something, you know, once again, there's like a lot of stuff happening in Yu-Gi-Oh right now that I would say is really, really good and unmatched with, like, even previous years. They're doing things we've never seen before, you know? I'm talking overframes. I'm talking exclusive winners packs with the stamps for the OTS stores and regional championships and stuff like that. The revamping of the tournament packs for, like, the ultimate tournament pack looking really, really good. They've put better pricing for regionals, for YCSs and everything. Like, so many areas in Yu-Gi-Oh right now that are improving. Like, everything is getting better. Like, cards are getting more accessible because they're reprinting more aggressively. They're putting chase cards into the sets that you don't need for competitive play, like higher rarity cards, overframes, and so on. We're getting Grandmaster rares and all the other things I just mentioned. Yu-Gi-Oh is going a very, very good path right now. The only thing that I'm worried about a little bit is the card design on individual archetypes. And it's not even all of the archetypes. Like I said, with Beyond the Brave, I have no issues with the set, pretty much, for the most part. The only thing I disliked about this set, if I remember correctly, was the support for the Medius lore, right? I feel like the Medius combo decks didn't need to get even better with the Ars Magna cards. But other than that, I pretty much thought this set looked good. You know, we got some good generic cards, some other pretty cool support. No real complaints with this set overall. It's just that we have some outliers that, like the Toon cards, for example. And the Toon cards can be found in the Revolution Booster Toon Witchcrafter Unchained, is what it was called in the OCG. It was released there like about 2 months ago, and Toon has been dominating the format ever since. And it's essentially, if you don't know what's going on with Toons, it revolves around a new field spell. The new field spell says, once per turn, add a Toon card or a card that mentions a Toon card's name from your deck to your hand. You can only use this effect of Toon World to Perfect World thrice per turn. Keep that in mind. Before resolving another activated card or effect, you can banish a Toon monster you control until immediately after that card effect resolves. Also, you cannot banish monster with the same original name with this effect of Toon World to Perfect World for the rest of this turn. And then there is a soft once per turn guy that places the field spell. So essentially what you do, if you open Funny Dark Rabbit, which gives you a second normal summon, and then once per turn you can add to your hand or place face up on your field a Toon field or a continuous spell. You normal summon this guy, activate the effect, get the field spell, use the field spell to search, then activate another effect, then you banish your Funny Dark Rabbit, bring it back, you can search again, you can place another copy of the field spell, search again. You can do that 3 times essentially, because this is thrice per turn and this is soft once per turn. So you have a lot of searching power and a very consistent engine, a lot of searchers that get you to all of your cards, which yet is not concerning. You know, a lot of searchers, a lot of consistency, generating some card advantage is fine. The problem with this deck is what it ends on. The 2 main interactions in the Toon deck are, number 1, Mind Scan. While you have a Toon card in your field or graveyard, your opponent must play with their hand revealed. Also, you can look at their set cards at any time. Yes, this card is literally just better than Rotary looking at your hand. But it gets better. Or worse. If you have a Toon monster and a Toon spell in your field or grave, you can declare the name of one card that was not activated and did not activate its effects in this chain. Negate the activated effects of cards with that original name while this card is face up on the field. So this is not only looking at your opponent's hand, but you also get to declare one of the cards that you see and your opponent can't use it. And that refreshes every turn. This is not a one-time thing. This is a continuous trap card that keeps looking at your opponent's cards, and just basically you can call their best card every turn to stop them from using it. And this deck has a counter trap, which negates spell, traps, and monster effects. So what this deck does is turn 1, it sets up Mind Scan, and it can set it up on turn 1. It places it turn 1 immediately onto the field. You immediately see the hand, and you set a counter trap. And it plays like anywhere from 15 to 18 hand traps. So essentially this deck is cool tune, but like on crack, because they always get to take 2 cards out of your hand, essentially. So if you don't draw 3 starters against this deck going second, you are not playing the game. And even if you draw 3 starters against this deck going second, they have like 15 hand traps. So if they have Veiler, Imperm, Ash, whatever, they're going to even cancel your 3rd starter as well. And they have some interactions in the deck as well. They have like a way to tribute your monsters on your turn. So you still have to play through that, even if you're lucky enough to be able to play the game. I don't want to ramble about Toon for too long, because I don't know exactly when we get this deck. And like I said, I've taken a longer look at this deck, and I encourage everyone to go watch that video if you want a more in-depth idea of how this deck plays and what kind of gameplay it provides. This is a deck that I'm worried about a little bit, but let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. I wanted to include it because we're talking about the future of the game today. Even though we don't know exactly when we get this product, or if it's even going to be the same product, or if they're going to put them into another set. We don't know the specifications of all that, of how that's going to work, but it is something that is on the horizon. And I think out of all the things we've talked about today, I think this is the most worrying in terms of balancing and in terms of fun to play. And, you know, we've looked at a lot of things that I'm genuinely looking forward to today. And this is the one thing that has me a little scared, you know, because Beyond the Brave, I think, really good set. Magnificent Monsters, really looking forward to it. Utility Selection, really looking forward to it. But, you know, the Toon stuff is, I feel like, is stuff of nightmares. But yeah. So that is what is on the horizon for Yu-Gi-Oh! In the next couple of weeks and months. Of course, also, the World Championship is happening in August, and I'm really looking forward to it. I'm going to be watch partying it over on my Twitch stream, because it's the first time in a long time that I'm not going to be there and playing, which is sad, but also kind of hype at the same time, because I get to watch it with all of you guys together. So I'm really looking forward to that. Lots of things in general, lots of things. I don't want the news about the Toon deck to take away from this. There is a lot of stuff to look forward to in the next couple of weeks and months for Yu-Gi-Oh! I want to hear your opinion. You know, when are we getting that ban list? What do you think of those upcoming Yu-Gi-Oh! Sets? How did you like today's video and discussion? Should I do stuff like this more in the future, or should I just do the stuff once the stuff actually happens? You know, am I too early on this? Should I have waited until the stuff releases? Give me that feedback. I'm eager to hear it. I'll see you next time, Duelists. Thank you for watching.